And good afternoon. I'm Tracy Sinclair here at Alaska's News Source. Welcome to this edition of In-Depth Alaska. And recently, in fact, just yesterday, Alaska Airlines and Hawaiian Airlines got the final approval to complete their merger. That merger was completed today. And really what we want to know is, what does this mean for Alaskans? How is this going to impact our travel? So I'm bringing in the expert, Scott McMurren. He is with Alaska Travelgram. So Scott, kind of give us a overview of what this merger is and what does it mean to Alaska.
Sure. So, Tracy, I've got to tell you, these things move along slow until they go really fast. And so today was the beginning of a long planned out effort to bring Hawaiian Airlines into the Alaska Air group. It will still maintain its brand as Hawaiian Airlines, as it has for 100 years now. But over the course of 12 to 18 months, you'll see travelers have the ability to exchange their Alaska Airlines miles for Hawaiian Airlines miles on a one-to-one basis. And what that means is you'll be able to travel to places like Korea, we talked about that earlier, Japan, Australia, New Zealand, Tahiti, Fiji, and the Cook Islands using your Alaska miles. Further, as we get further down this path, you'll be able to earn miles when you purchase tickets on Hawaiian Airlines through the Alaska Airlines site. So the big synthesis that Alaska travelers will see will be the greater value, I think, for their Alaska Airlines miles. That's probably the biggest thing.
So overall, as somebody who understands the travel world, is this a good thing or a bad thing? Sounds like you think it's pretty positive.
Well, if I may say so, just on a personal standpoint, as someone who collects miles and likes to use them, I think it's great that, further down the line here in the next 12 to 18 months, I'll be able to use my Alaska Airlines miles to buy a ticket to Australia and New Zealand. Now, keep in mind, already Alaska Airlines has partnerships with Qantas, with Japan Airlines, with Korean Airlines, to use their miles. But it's one thing to have partner miles. For example, as a partner, I might, if I buy the cheapest ticket, which often I do, or the next cheapest ticket rather, I'll get 25, 30% mileage credit. Ostensibly, as a wholly owned and operated subsidiary of Alaska Air Group, we'll be able to get full mileage credit for when we purchase those miles. So those are some of the things that are still being worked out, still in the details. It's a big deal to close this. The thing that I believe the Department of Justice and the Department of Transportation were waiting for is the key consumer-facing concessions on the part of Alaska Hawaiian Airlines, that this would not be a bad thing. In other words, it would not mean elimination of competition, and it would not mean that fares would go up right away.
And so you're talking about some specific things that, in particular, the Department of Transportation, I believe, asked for was about continuing the mileage plan. So I assume that we're not seeing, or the value of the mileage plan for Alaska and Hawaiian. As you said, they're eventually, it sounds like it will become one, and we will be able to use those miles. What are we seeing as downsides? Are there any downsides to this merger?
Well, it's hard for me to speculate too much. There was not, at least for Alaskans, our exposure in this deal is the three routes that Alaska Airlines operates between here and Hawaii. Anchorage, Honolulu, which they do every day. Anchorage, Maui, which it's way down since the wildfires. Starts out as once a week service in the fall, and then goes, I believe, to three times a week in January and February. And then Anchorage to Kona, again, it's down from a couple of years ago, but starts out as a weekly service, and then three times a week, and then daily service in January and February. That's our exposure to this merger proposition. Our brothers and sisters on the West Coast, however, have a little bit more exposure. There's a little bit more competitive overlap between Alaska and Hawaiian. The two airlines made their case to the Department of Transportation and the Department of Justice with respect to antitrust, and they seem to have been able to come to an agreement. I really want to drive home, though, for travelers, that this one deal between Alaska and Hawaiian will not mitigate my
Emphatic, yes.
suggestion that you should earn and burn your miles and not save them, because frequent flyer miles in general and Alaska Airlines miles and Hawaiian Airlines miles in particular are suffering from hyperinflation. The rates, the number of miles that it takes to redeem these flights keeps going up. This is an unregulated shadow currency. And so I would really implore people to earn and burn. Those are my three magic words for frequent flyers. Am I making myself clear?
You are, and that makes sense because you're right. There have, including recent changes to the Alaska Airlines mileage plan. I used to be one of those people that would do miles and money because I would still get the miles.
Yeah.
But that's gone away. You don't get miles anymore for that. So
that's fine.
They do change. I'll just use miles. One of the other things that was pretty specific in the statement from the DOT was family seating. Now, this was not something I tend to travel alone or with adult friends, so if we get separated, we're fine. But what is family seating and why is this important to a lot of people?
That's a very good question, and I did notice that in the DOT's order that parents with kids 13 and under must be seated at no additional charge next to their parents. Okay, so what that means, so Alaska Airlines doesn't charge for every single doggone seat, but other airlines do. American, United, they all charge for seats at some level. And so the DOT's policy here, they're trying to regulate in favor of families a little bit, because in particularly in some of these budget airlines, you don't get pre-assigned seats, and even when you buy a saver ticket on Alaska Airlines, you do not get an assigned seat all the time. And so it's possible that, in the random check-in process, you would be seated apart from each other. And so this policy from the DOT to the airlines mandates that children be seated next to their parents. It only makes sense.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised, but when you say it like that, I'm very particular about my seats when I fly, so I tend to get one where I can pick my seat ahead of time because I like specific. And Karen on Facebook says she got the message, earn and burn. She got it, she's ready to go. One of the other things you were talking just a little bit ago, new routes that might be available, because as somebody that has been trying to travel overseas lately, it is kind of a challenge to use those partner miles sometimes. They're not always available. What new routes do you think are we going to be able to see through this?
Well, again, the new routes that Hawaiian Airlines brings to the table are all ex-Honolulu. So Honolulu will now be Alaska Airlines' second largest hub after Seattle. And so, where we go, we're most of us, excuse me, are programmed to go to Seattle to catch, your onward flight. Now, more of those flights will be ex-Honolulu. Honolulu, Sydney, Honolulu, Auckland, Honolulu, Rarotonga, Honolulu, Fiji, Honolulu, Tahiti, Honolulu, Seoul, Honolulu, Fukuoka, Honolulu, Haneda, Honolulu, Narita, Honolulu, Yokohama. So these are the new routes that we'll see that are not available to us through partner miles because Hawaiian isn't a one world partner at this point. Okay, so those are the new routes that we'll see. I've got to tell you one question that keeps coming up on my own social media feed is, hey, when are we going to see Anchorage to Tokyo nonstop using Hawaiian Airlines wide body jets? Who knows? That is like they've got so many other things on their plate, but the only way to jumpstart that is if Delta or United or American started flying that route. Then probably the next day, Alaska Airlines and their partner Hawaiian would drop a plane in there. But I don't see that happening anytime soon.
Yeah, I'm kind of waiting for the Anchorage Seoul flight, which I have
Aren't we all?
has also not occurred. So, what happens next? Where do we go from here? When do we start to see some changes with this merger?
Well, there've been changes already. So the CEO, Peter, can't remember his last name, of Hawaiian, is stepping down now that the deal is closed. In his place is an Alaska Airlines executive that should be very familiar to Alaskans, and his name is Joe Sprague. He worked for Alaska Airlines for many years. Uh, Took a kind of went off and did some other projects for a while, and then came back as the regional president for the Pacific. So he's been in Honolulu. He's been in Honolulu since last December when they made the decision when the two companies came together and wanted to get married. So Joe's been over there since then. He now is this chief executive officer for Hawaiian Airlines. Okay, and so now begins the process. Keep in mind that both these airlines, both Hawaiian and Alaska Airlines, have their own heritage. Hawaiian's been operating for 100 years. Alaska Airlines has been operating for 95 years. They both have their own regulatory process. They both have their own fleet. By the way, Alaska Airlines says, oh, hey, we're proudly all Boeing. Well, guess what? They're inheriting a whole fleet of Airbus aircraft, in addition to a couple of 787s. So, it's a whole different fleet, a whole different, different union groups, okay, all of which have to be integrated, that part through collective bargaining, but just, working their way around how they do things in Honolulu versus how they do things in Seattle. That's going to take time. And I've seen mergers where it didn't go very well. And it's common for mergers not to go well. Um, I don't think that the Alaska Airlines merger with Virgin America went particularly smooth, but that's me. America West and U.S. Air, with America, those mergers didn't go well. So I've known Joe for a long time, so I have a lot of faith in his ability to marshal these two ships to bring them home to port. But it's going to take time, and it's going to take a lot of work. It doesn't happen in a hurry, and it doesn't happen overnight. And so we'll see how this gets done.
Well, very good. Now that I have you here, because I always have to ask this at this time of year or any time of year when we get a chance to talk. It's fall in Alaska. Where, one, in Alaska, where not in Alaska, where do you recommend people go? What's your kind of highlight travel places right now?
You know, Tracy, thank you so much for asking. I was so surprised. Last Friday, I had a lunch at Sheep Mountain Lodge, which is 100 miles away, up the Glen Highway. I had to stop like 5 or 10 times because the fall colors were just blazing. Yellows and orange, and all the shrubbery down below were red. I mean, it was just an incredible display of Mother Nature. Just really, shouting it out, this is the season. All you leaf peepers, get on it. And so there are a bunch of kind of different routes if you want to drive and see that. One is the Denali Highway, although I would caution you, that is a 35-mile-an-hour road, and you exceed that speed limit at your peril. Okay, I mean, but it's just because it's rather remote between Cantwell and Paxton. You're gonna get an incredible natural experience. And so that, I mean, you can drive, and that's great, or you can stop and get a helicopter ride and get an incredible journey, which includes a little leaf peeping action and maybe landing on the glacier. Those are
That sounds
really,
like
really,
fun.
really cool
Yeah.
things. Yeah, and then my out of state one. So I also send out fare alerts to my people, and I sent one out today for Liberia, Costa Rica. I mean, it's relatively short notice. Liberia, Costa Rica for it's like 220 bucks. Actually, I'm going to have to check and see exactly what I said because here we go. $226 to $274 on Alaska, Delta, American, or United. Fly October 26th to December 15th. The return is a little bit more, $311, but that's a really good deal to, Costa Rica, which is down there next to Panama. And it's gonna be tropical down there, nice and warm and sunny.
At this time of year, many of us are already anticipating needing that.
Yeah, true story. True
Well,
story.
very good. Thank you, Scott, so much for spending some time with us and talking about the Alaska-Hawaiian merger and, of course, some travel recommendations. We will definitely look at it. Scott McMurren with Alaska Travelgram. You can go. What's your website real fast?
It's alaskatravelgram.com, and sign up for the newsletter. It's free.
And you can get those fare alerts. Or you can get them with points. So thank you so much, Scott, for joining us here. And thank you for joining us on In Depth Alaska. Of course, you can always get more on alaskasnewssource.com and at 4, 5, 6, and 10 on Alaska's News Source.